Hello everyone and welcome to another video. Today I wanted to do a quick tutorial showing how to get started with DashWare. So first things first, what is DashWare? Basically, DashWare is a free piece of software that will allow you to overlay gauges, dials, and readouts on top of a video file. This video can be taken from pretty much any source such as a GoPro, your phone, a 360 camera, etc. And the data to drive these gauges can be collected from an equally large variety of sources such as smartwatches, GPSs, drones, etc. In fact, here's an example of the output of DashWare where I've taken one of my mountain biking videos and overlaid some gauges to display things like my speed, location, heart rate, etc. during the run. So in today's video, we'll get DashWare up and running and actually show you how to generate the video you're currently watching. So if that sounds like fun, let's go ahead and download the software to get started. Alright, so like most software nowadays, to find it, just go ahead over to Google, type in the name of the software, DashWare, and here it is. It's the first hit, so I'll just go to the DashWare website, and you'll see that this is a little bit dated. I'm not sure this is supported any longer, but we're going to give it a try anyways. So let's come over here to the Download tab. Click on agree to the end user license agreement, terms of use, and the privacy policy, and then we'll just click on the download button. And there we go, we're getting DashWare version 1.9.1 being downloaded. So let's go ahead and check that out. And we can go ahead and here it is. Let's go ahead and just double click on the installer and get this thing installed on the machine. All right, so we're gonna have to agree to this. We're going to stick it in program files. Yep, that sounds great. Let's go ahead and install. All right, and there it goes. Yeah, we don't need a... Yeah, sure, why not? Let's create a desktop shortcut. Okay, finish. Okay, so DashWare should be installed. Let's go ahead and give it a try now. Alright, so I've gone ahead and fired up DashWare. As you can see, this is the interface that you're presented with. Now, the first thing I do want to mention is after installing DashWare, what it may have done is it may have chosen a sort of quote-unquote default working directory for all of your DashWare files. So in my particular case, just when I installed it, it decided to install it here into my documents folder. So I think this is like my username, documents, and then as you can see, it's got, it makes this folder called DashWare and DashWare projects, okay? Now, the only reason I'm bringing this to your attention is because this directory, this documents directory, for a lot of people, including me, is the directory where I actually have it synced up to my OneDrive. So you can see by all these green check marks right here. So this folder is actually automatically monitored, and any new changes are usually pushed up to the cloud. So there's some type of automatic process that does this with all of the different files. And the problem is that automatic checking and reconciliation process where it's checking to see if the file is new and then automatically pushing it up, and maybe it sometimes locks the file when that file is being uploaded or when a new version is downloaded. Basically, that entire system, I've noticed, has the potential to interfere with how DashWare wants to save files to its default directory. So long story short, this is not a good location for your default DashWare directory because of that interference. So instead, what I would recommend doing is making another folder on your machine somewhere that is not under this sort of automatic version control from OneDrive or Google Drive or Dropbox or anything like that. So in this case, I've made something here in temp DashWare demo. So I've made this empty folder. So the first thing we want to do in DashWare before we do anything else is change the default directory to this location. So to do that, come over here to DashWare and go Tools, Options, and this pulls up on my other screen. And as you can see, it's set up to see users, Chris, OneDrive, documents. As we discussed, this is a bad location. So instead, I'm going to change this to that location we just looked at. So that was here in temp, I think DashWare demo, and then hit OK, OK. All right, great. So now we should be ready to start working in this directory, okay? So the first thing we're gonna do is we need to create a brand new project. So to do that, come up here to File, File, New Project, okay? And what you'll be presented with is this dialog, which allows you to specify a name. So let's leave the date. I think that's helpful. Let's change this name. How about to YouTube Demo, okay? Then the next thing you can choose is a project template. So this, if you hit the drop down, you'll see there's a lot of different templates that will help get you started quickly with a reasonable layout of gauges and how they're displayed on the screen. So let's go with the standard. How about the GoPro template Imperial? Again, we'll look in future videos at how to customize the interface, but for now we just want to get up and running quickly. So let's use the standard GoPro template Imperial, okay? And now, if we go ahead and actually, let me see if I can do this kind of on both sides. I wonder, can I move this over to the side easily? No, I guess not. What I basically want to say is let's go ahead and hit OK. Oops, okay. So we see you get a standard layout that's set up and ready to go. And now, if you come to this location where we set our DashWare directory, you see that it made this folder here with our project name. It says YouTube demo, and inside you're going to see it has various gauges that are set up as well as a project file. So that's all fine and dandy. This is basically a good spot where we can now start working with all of our files and editing it in DashWare. Okay, so for giggles, let's go ahead and say file save just to make sure we're all okay. And now what we need to do is let's go ahead and put a sample video file in this folder. All right, so I've got a movie file that I'm just going to copy and paste into this directory. It doesn't actually have to be in this same folder. It can be located somewhere else, but I just like to keep everything in one place. So let me just open this up in VLC, and you can kind of see this is just basically a little bit of video that I took from a 360 camera mounted on my helmet as I was biking down this trail. So this is the video that we want to add to DashWare. So let's go ahead and do that now. So I will come back over to DashWare, and over here on the right, you can see we can start working through this workflow. So here in Project Notes, I'm going to say this is a simple example of using DashWare with a biking video for a YouTube demo. Okay? So down here, next thing what we'll do is let's go ahead and add a video file to this project. So I'm going to click on this plus sign, and then I need to just go to that location. So I think that was here in D, temp, what do we say, DashWare demo, here it was this folder. Here it is. Here's the video that we're interested in. So I'll just click open. And there it is. It's laid out over here on the left, and you can scrub using this little knob right here. Okay? So you can kind of go through anywhere. You can hit play if you want to just watch this thing go. You can actually move the start. You can crop this video. So if I don't want the entire bit, so for example, here in the beginning, this is a little bit boring where I'm just kind of trying to cross the street. So this is a little bit boring, and we might not want to include that in our final video. So maybe I'll wait till we start going like here. Okay, and what you can do is you can grab this little triangle, click, hold, and drag it over, and now we'll start a little bit into the video. So now, it's going to start right here instead. And same thing, you can do this with the end as well. So you can kind of move and crop using these two items, okay? All right, so that's great. I think we've got the video ready. Now what we're gonna need is, notice that none of these gauges are moving, right? That's because we don't have any data to feed these gauges. So that's the next thing we're gonna do. So let's go ahead and save the project, and now let's go get a data file which we can use to sync up with the video. Alright, so to get that data, I am going to use my my watch. So I use this Garmin VivoActive 3 music watch to basically track all of my workouts. So that's collecting all of this data, obviously the position of where I am during my workout, as well as things like the elevation, speed, heart rate. So all of this data is collected, and this is what I'm going to use to drive the DashWare gauges on the video. So I need all of this data, so what I'm going to do is I'll come here to Garmin Connect, and I'll just come here and click on the gears, and I'm going to download or export. You can either export it as a GPX, a TCX, or a FIT file, so a .fit. So let's do that. Let's go ahead and say export original, and what that should do is it should download this as a .fit file. So let me come to my downloads folder. And yep, here it is. Here's the activity that was just downloaded. So let me go ahead and extract this. I will go ahead and unzip the zip file that Garmin Connect, the website, decided to give me. And here it is. Here's my activity.fit. So let's go ahead and I will cut this and let's move this into that location. Again, I like to just collect all of my data in one spot. So here we are. So now here's this .fit file, and again, this is actually, it's a binary file, so it's not really an ASCII file that you can look at, unfortunately. Whoops, sorry that my thing just my Windows Explorer just closed for some reason. Let's go back there. DashWare demo, yeah, here it is. Okay, here it is. Let's right click on this thing. And again, this is a binary file, so you look at this and it doesn't really look like anything right now. But luckily, DashWare should be able to read that. So what I mean by that is, let's go ahead and let me change this view so we can see just the files instead of icons, right? So right now, notice we have the gauges folder that we talked about. Or actually, maybe we didn't talk about this, but this gauges information contains some of these different gauges information for a lot of these different components over here. So for example, like this guy over here, if you click on it, you'll see this is the GoPro speedometer. This thing down here is something called a GoPro G plot. This thing over here is a GoPro speed chart, etc., etc. So all of these things are different gauges or different elements that are part of the video overlays that we're putting. Now, some of these gauges are located in this gauge toolbox over here, right? But some of these, for example, like this GoPro speedometer, are not located here. If you notice, this is all laid out by alphabetical order. So if we go here to GoPro, I don't think you're going to see that thing. There's no GoPro speedometer, right? There's a speed tracker, there's this stat box, there's some of these other things that either might come with your install in the standard chart or not. But this one right here does not. So this one, again, was the GoPro speedometer, but that definition is here in the gauges folder. So you can see right here, here's the GoPro speedometer. So here's all the information associated with this gauge, etc., etc., right? That's all of these files. So that's in the gauges folder. Now, here we have the .fit file. So this has all of the data associated with this video, right? With this workout, okay? This was the project file created by DashWare, and then here's obviously the video that we are trying to overlay these gauges onto, okay? Now, what I want to do now is let's go ahead and add a data file to this project. So I'm just going to click on the plus sign to add, and we'll get a little dialog box. And now I just need to browse to that fit file right here. Here it is. Here's this blah 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 .fit file. So this is what we just got. This was collected by my watch, uploaded to the cloud, and now I just downloaded it, right? So now let's go ahead and hit open, and it opens it up and it realizes what type of data that is. If you click on this drop down box, you'll see there's all these different kinds of profiles, right, of data that it supports. But what we want is the .fit file. That's exactly what we want. So if I now go ahead and click add, and in fact, let me see if I can do this. Gosh, it's hard to show both at the same time. In fact, never mind, it already did that activity. Let me hit add, okay? And now let me come back to this, okay? And now notice we said earlier this .fit file, this was a binary file, and when we tried to right click and open this and look at it in a Notepad++, you couldn't read anything. But DashWare was able to open it and actually convert this to a CSV file. So now if you edit this thing in Notepad and you take a look at it, now you see all of the data that was recorded. You can see the dates, the times, the lat, long, the distance you've gone, the speed, heart rate, all this kind of information is now available in this CSV file. And now we have loaded that into DashWare. So now we're getting pretty close to getting ready to overlay all this information and basically, render this movie. All right, so for example, let's take a quick look, and you can actually kind of see this dial up here, or this gauge up here, was kind of a GPS overlay of where you're going, and as you can see, that is pretty darn close. In fact, I'm sure that is exactly what we collected on the watch, because that's exactly what's driving this gauge. So this is pretty perfect. It looks like DashWare has all of that information. The only problem is the data file that I have is huge, right? In the sense that I started my watch at the beginning of this 15-mile ride that I did on my bike. But this video here is just for a very small section. In fact, the small section I know is up here. It's this sort of westward direction of data going this way. So what I need to do is I need to basically zoom into the data and isolate the data and get it synchronized with this portion of the video so everything lines up. So to do that, I'm going to come over here to the synchronization tab. Okay. Now here we get a overlay of the entire trajectory, right? And now what I can do is, in a similar fashion, you can scrub using this thing down here. So now, notice as you scrub through this, you can see the position of where you are, and some of these gauges start to light up. So for example, at this point in my ride, I apparently was going 14 miles an hour, and I was doing all this other stuff. Now, what I want, in fact, is I want to get this to the point where I was, about here. I know this is the chunk where I turned on my camera and I have footage. So I actually want this bit of information here. So the same thing, I can use this thing to kind of trim your data if you want. So I'll make this smaller. So now, yeah, there we go. So now we only have data up to there. That's pretty good. Maybe I'll go a little bit closer just for giggles, right? Okay, something like, yeah, that's close enough, I think. Okay, and then same thing. I don't need this second half of my ride, so let's go ahead and crop all that data as well to get us a little bit further back. Okay, let me go a little more. That's pretty good. Oops, that's too far. Okay, how about like that? Okay, now I've noticed sometimes that this thing it draws like a straight line. I think there's some kind of hiccup, I think, in the code. Something that has helped is I'll click sometimes on this close course bit and notice that now it went away. Right, so anyway, small little hint. Sometimes you may want to click on the check or uncheck this close course if you're getting those kind of issues. But this looks pretty good, right? I've zoomed in the data to kind of where I want. And yeah, we're getting pretty close. Now, the only thing I need to do is notice here that the data portion here is not synced up to the video quite yet. So that's what I need to do. So let's get this video at a spot where I can recognize it. So around here's where I sort of start accelerating. Okay, so what I can do is let's go ahead and find this data, and I'm going to play this. And what we're looking for is you can notice the video is paused, but the data is going forward right now. So I'm trying to find a unique, easily identifiable portion of the data where I know I can sync this up, the data with the video. So in the video, we had just started accelerating, so I would expect the speed to increase like right there. You see the speed is creeping up? So this is about probably where I started the run, and I'm starting to go through. So I've paused the data here, I've paused the video, and now what you can do is you can click on this sync with video. So as soon as you have the data synced up with the video in a way that you think is reasonable, you go ahead and click this and check it. Now you are no longer allowed to scrub over in the data because the scrubber here on the video should do both. Right, so it should progress both the video and the data, and now hopefully these two things are synced up. So this looks pretty great, right? This is looking good, yeah, this is working, I think. So let's go ahead and save our project again, because I think we've done a lot of good work. We've got the data synced up, we've got our gauges sort of plugged in. Now, one thing that we may want to do is, what if we want to add or remove some of these gauges? So for example, I don't need this GoPro logo up here because I actually didn't even shoot this on a GoPro. So I'm going to click on this, and if I just click delete, that gauge goes away. Same thing with this G-force meter. Like, I was not recording G-force information, so this data is completely irrelevant. So I'll click on this and hit delete, okay? Now, I may want to add something. So for example, like, what about heart rate monitor? I would love to know what my heart rate is. And as we saw earlier, that is present in our data set. So if I look over here at the headers of the data, I have time, longitude, latitude, altitude, distance, speed, grade, which actually I don't actually get. You'll notice my watch doesn't get that, but my watch does get heart rate in terms of beats per minute. So I would really like to understand what my heart rate is during this activity. So let's come over here to the gauge toolbox and look for a heart rate gauge. And I know there is one. So for example, right here, heart rate, yeah, this is what I want. I want this gauge in my project. So again, let me pull this up. I'm going to come over here to gauges. Notice right now that in my project, in my gauges folder, I do not have a heart rate gauge present. What I want to do now is I want to copy this heart rate gauge from the gauge toolbox over to my project. So to do that, you just click on the gauge of interest, and then this button right here says copy gauge to project. So I will do that, and well, bam, I get a heart rate monitor gauge. So let's drag this into a location where would be helpful. So let's put this, how about right there? Okay, and now let's go ahead and hit save project. There we go. All right, and look at that. Now we have this heart rate gauge in our gauges folder within the project. So again, this gauge should now be synced up with all of my other stuff. So yep, look at that. As I scrub through, you can see my heart rate change as I'm going through this. We see everything else change. So this is looking great. So again, what we will talk about in some future videos is customizing these gauges. You'll notice that this speed tracker is a little bit kind of messed up right now, but we'll talk about how to fix that in future projects, or excuse me, in future tutorials. Right now, I think this is working, and this looks really pretty darn good. This has got everything working for the most part. So you know what? Let's go ahead and save our project again. And now let's just think about exporting this video, which will have the actual video with all of our overlays attached to it. So let's go ahead and say File, Create Video, and then we'll get ourselves a little dialog up here. We can set some of these parameters. Yeah, I think this looks good. Let me see, file name. Yes, it's in here. That's the here, tell you what, let's browse. Let me make sure I put this in the right place. Yeah, temp DashWare demo in this thing. Save. Yes. Okay, this is all great. Okay, so now I'll go ahead and hit create video. And now we get this little timer, and looks like we got about 5 minutes to wait. So we'll be back as soon as this is done rendering. All right, so it looks like the video rendering was completed. So let's go ahead and look in the folder that we saved it to. And aha, here it is. Here is the rendered video. So let's just go ahead and double click this and take a look. And yes, look at this. This looks great. So it starts exactly where we wanted it to. It looks like the gauges are all responding. So we've got the overlays, and yeah, this is looking beautiful. Yeah, with that being said, I think this is probably a good spot to leave it. Like I said, what we're trying to do with this first video is just get you started and up and running in DashWare quickly. I hope you'll catch us at a future video. We'll talk about things like customizing some of these displays. So for example, notice that this GPS track, it doesn't have a background map behind it, so it's a little hard to see where you're going. We'll talk about how to add that. We'll also talk about fixing things like this, like the x-axis on this speed tracker looks a little bit off, and it might be nice if we can customize that. And in fact, we'll also talk about customizing and making your own gauges and using your own type of data files as inputs to DashWare in future discussions. So I hope to have a long series of videos talking about DashWare and getting it to do what you want, but hopefully this gives you a rough idea of what the system is capable of. And yeah, hopefully whets your appetite for some of the future discussions. So, like I said, I hope you enjoyed the video, and if so, I also hope you'll consider subscribing to the channel. Surprisingly, if you just scroll a little ways down and click on that subscribe button, it really does help me continue making these videos. And all the videos come out every Monday, so yeah, I hope I'll be able to catch you at one of these future discussions and we can all learn something new together. So until then, I think I'll sign off. Talk to you later. Bye.